Is it time for gamers, mainly console gamers, to realize we are never going to see the same huge jump in graphics that we saw from PS1 to PS2 to PS3? It seems many continue to expect to be wowed, but end up being disappointed. Also, we need to come to terms with longer stretches of console games being released, cross-gen games being released. Then he goes, personally, I blame PC. I don't know why. This is we've talked about this before. By the way, Dumek, if you could explain that last part, that please do, unless you guys get it. But we've talked about this on the show, and this is something I've personally had to contend with. I'm like, yeah, we're never going to see those big graphical jumps again. We are not.
That is untrue.
Well, okay, please show me how, because you've seen the diminishing returns already.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, what do you? How much more graphic fidelity do you want than photorealistic? I mean, hell, some games now look like super ultra realistic, where you don't even have the depth of field that normal human perception does. Everything's in hyper focus all the time, and everything's super fucking glossy. Like, we've just reached a ceiling because we're not.
So you agree with me then?
No, because if you were playing anything but mechanically limited mass appeal games, you would know that VR is going through this exact thing right now. You have such a much higher computational demand on it that it knocks down the graphics, and everybody wants to talk shit about that. But those graphics are going to accelerate at the same breakneck speed that things did before, because they're still developing it. Where you're looking at the one subset of mass market, highly polished, fully done games. It's had time to mature as an industry, right? If you look at games like Minecraft, the reason Minecraft looks that way wasn't a stylistic choice because somebody liked fucking Legos. It was because that game could not run, and honestly still has problems running sometimes because of the fact that it renders every goddamn block in the whole world at once. Now, does that afford different types of gameplay? Sure. Does it also knock you back in graphics? Absolutely. But if we're talking about the Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft, open world missions on a fucking waypoint map, blah, 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 yeah, we've reached the pinnacle of that. But I don't think that saying just because we can't make a prettier Assassin's Creed game means that the evolution of video games has stopped.
That's not what he's saying, though. He's saying, and I agree, that we're not going to see those same types of jumps that we did before.
You will, though. That's the thing, though. Like,
but how? You literally just said we've reached the plateau.
Only
if you've reached the plateau,
are we only talking about Assassin's Creed here?
No, we're talking about everything.
Is Assassin's Creed the only video game?
No, we're talking about every video game, right? And think about what you just said. You said you use VR as an example. So what I heard was like, okay, now we got to wait for VR to catch up to where we currently are graphically.
Well, do you want it to catch up, or are you sad that it's not caught up yet? Are you sad that there's no room to grow?
No, I am saying that we are never going to see the same type of graphical jump that we saw from like the Genesis to the PS1, from the PS1 to PS2. We're not seeing that anymore. We're just going to see these incremental steps. We already saw it 2 generations in a row, right?
When do you think like 720 to 4K is not an equivalent jump?
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
It is not.
And the thing about it is it's barely 4K.
Yeah, it is not at all, because it's still the same polygon count. That hasn't changed. It's still the same textures.
I'm not talking about our current system, man. I'm talking about a true 720p broadcast versus a 4K broadcast. You don't think that's an equivalent jump?
No, I don't, because it's still the same polygons. It's still the same textures. It hasn't changed.
Okay, now imagine if they were rendered in native 720 and native 4K.
But it's still the same polygon count, man. That hasn't changed.
I mean, it's like
why is it the same polygon count?
Because it is. I don't know. I don't make fucking games.
It's the same polygon count because they don't make more polygons for fucking games that are going to be used across multiple displays.
Yeah. But again, think about it.
In 10 years, they might actually start programming shit for 4K instead of just upscaling textures. And that's the kind of shit that I'm talking about. If you're looking at video games exactly as the way they are, sure, we are not going to see that kind of jump. And most likely, we're not going to see a lot of it in the mainstream because people refuse to take the graphical downgrade. We could have games evolving.
What the hell are you talking about? We're talking about upgrading, not downgrading. I'm just confused. I'm trying to nail down what you're speaking about here. Even the guys in the chat, like, what? Well, the thing, you've been going on for 5 minutes. I'm still don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're literally agreeing with me. But you're going in a weird circumventing type of way to disagree. I don't understand where you're getting at.
Let's say we made Assassin's Creed a better game, right? Like, let's say we actually upgraded it from 15 fucking years ago when the mechanics were laid in place. In order to upgrade it, we wouldn't be able to keep the same graphics that we have, which is the reason that we haven't seen video games mechanically evolve the way that they have picture-wise.
Right, we're not talking about mechanics. We're talking about just the visuals.
Oh my god. I'm telling you that the reason that they haven't upgraded since then is because there's nowhere else to go, and nobody is allowing video games to upgrade. Nobody's allowing them to continue to evolve this way. And, you know, if it makes it easier, just look at it this way. VR is adapting just as fast.
Okay.
Because you used to get grainy below 720, and now you're creeping up on 4K.
Well,
but that's like saying, handhelds are catching up. We're talking about the pinnacle. We're not talking about something that's still trying to catch up.
But you're acting like we can't go any further. We're not going to see development further.
No, I'm saying we're not going to see the types of jumps we've seen in the past. You've already said we've plateaued. That means we can't go any further. That's it.
In terms of the things that we're showing on the screen, sure, I
guess.
Thank
you. That's what we're talking about, dude. We're not talking about all this other stuff.
Oh
well, to interject, you're like you mentioned going from 2D to 3D. That was technically a downgrade because we went up a dimension, but we went down in graphical fidelity
for a little bit.
What I'm saying, we haven't been doing that. We've just been. Nobody is willing to accept a game that doesn't look less than perfect. So we've been accepting dumber and dumber fucking games. The only reason that we wouldn't see a graphical upgrade is because we've refused any of the downgrades that would have allowed video games to evolve in the last 15 years. And in a perfectly natural ecosystem that's not done by huge AAA titles, you're seeing other things like, even just down to like the difference in what Elder Scrolls used to be compared to what Elder Scrolls is now is fucking mind-boggling. Right? But then somebody's going to say, well, Elder Scrolls has always looked bad. Well, Elder Scrolls was doing a vastly larger world than everything else. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the justification of the actual mechanics of the game compared to the actual graphics.
I'm saying we won't allow ourselves anything less than perfect graphics, which is the only reason we don't have anywhere to go.
So, in other words, you agree?
Sure.
All right, there you go.
I think you're all wrong. I think you're all wrong, and I'm not going to circumvent to agree with you, Tony. So
you're all wrong.
So I think we still have a ways to go. I don't think we've reached anywhere near the pinnacle. I mean, we've been saying for the last 2 decades that Ratchet and Clank looks like a Pixar movie. And no, it hasn't. Neither did the last one, but they've all increased and gotten better. And it initiates the response saying, "Oh, it looks like a Pixar game." It actually, this is finally the Pixar game I've always wanted to play because we're still going up. The reason, and I think there's different discussions here. I think the one of the ones that I think Tony is referencing mostly is the graphical leap between the end and the initiation of the generation. So going,
Yeah, but he's only looking at the top graphics.
Yeah, but that's what the question is. And Carlos, here's my question to you though: do you honestly believe we're going to have a huge graphical jump between PS5 and PS6?
Yeah, but I don't think there'll be like a noticeable day one. I think by the end of PS6, which one did you start with? PS5 or PS4?
PS5.
PS5. Yeah. But by the end of PS6, we'll clearly see. Wow, this was a big difference. Obviously, it's hard to when you're starting from the bottom. When you're starting from Pong, obviously the S curve is barely starting. We're reaching a point where it's going to eventually saturate, but I don't think we're near that yet.
Yeah, but I mean, do you honestly believe we're going to see like the huge type of jump we did from like PS1 to PS2? I don't think so. I think we're just going to see incremental like little steps. But
PS1 to PS2 wasn't. It wasn't as. I don't think it's as big as you think it was. I mean, it
Dude,
wasn't
really compared to
really broke.
PS1 games to PS2 games, man.
Dude, you're discounting like the 2 years where they were still in transition.
Yeah, but they still did look very different. Even those shitty PS2 original launch games still look better. You know?
I think the biggest, because let's use your example, PS1 to PS2. I don't think that comes even a fucking anywhere near NES to SNES. I think that
no,
was
yeah.
a bigger.
But that's my point. We keep getting diminishing returns every generation.
Oh no, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I've been saying that. So you're right. It keeps getting lesser and lesser every time. You know.
But we still got a ways to go. I just don't agree with the narrative saying that we've reached the pinnacle. We're nowhere near.
No,
that.
we're not at the pinnacle, but we're not gonna see the big jumps anymore. It's just gonna be little leaps. That's all.
Well, we won't.
You know?
We won't see them. We won't see them day one. That's the issue, and that's another thing. We're doing all this cross generational bullshit where developers are developing are going to develop PS4 games until for 3 years into the life cycle of the PS5.
Yeah, which is going to make things worse. You know.
It's going to make things worse, and people, we still won't see until the last game that comes out. The Last of Us 3, Abby's Return or Revenge.
Oh God.
And that's gonna, because I mean, even compare The Last of Us 1 to The Last of Us 2, and not The Last of Us 1 remastered edition, the original one,
yeah.
versus The Last of Us 2 on the PS4 Pro. It looks ridiculously better. It's night and day.
I don't know about night and day, maybe afternoon and evening or something.
Well, I mean, even The Last of Us 1's performance was really bad.
Yeah.
So I think that also attributes to it. But yeah, we still got a long way to go. Obviously, we're like
think
I mentioned,
about it, you're kind of proving the point though. You're going to only see these at the end of the generation, which is basically we're taking the long road there instead of like, oh shit, look at this,
dude. It's always been that way.
No, it hasn't. When you jump from 8-bit to 16-bit, that was a huge fucking jump.
Okay, 8-bit to 16-bit, dude. That was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, but that's my point.
We're not, and that's not the
Brett,
question.
No,
yes,
it is. He is in the chat right now, literally saying that's exactly what he's saying. That we're never going to see that again. And I 100% agree with him.
Well,
we're never going to see that again.
I feel I'll go ahead, Brent.
It depends on how you look at it. I mean, will we see a double in computational power? No. Will we see 8 bits of difference in evolution? Oh yeah, absolutely. Every single fucking day. I'm pretty sure each game coming out is going to be at least 8 bits bigger, or 8 bits more than the last one.
Brett, just to clarify, we're not. Every generation doesn't double in computational power. It probably quadruples, quintuples.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if we're looking, are we going to see something that that's literally doubles? Probably not. Are we going to see something that is an equivalent? Yeah, I just think it throws off the metrics when you're like, it only had 8 bits, man. 8 bits to 16 bits. It's not a huge jump. I mean, it's double, but it's not a huge jump.
Well, look at some NES games compared to SNES games, and
but those were the NES games, not versus the SNES games. They weren't the launch ones.
Even like shit like Pilot Wings and Super Mario World look better than anything on NES.
Some of them, but what we always say with every single console generation, it takes 2 to 3 years for them to actually take advantage of the power of the system. We don't see that overnight thing happening anymore.
But it's also in terms of where the computational power is going towards. It's like, is it going towards? That was my whole point,
but that don't argue that point.
Yeah. Again, I'm sticking with the spirit of the question. By the way, he's already upset. He's like, you guys took this in a way different direction. He just mainly disagrees with Brett's assessment. Oh man. Like, Brett, I see what you're talking about with all this other stuff, but that's not the heart of the question. Basically,
here, let me put it this way, because I think this is better, and it's very simple. The best looking games are hard to improve upon. Will we see that kind of graphical improvement with the rest of the games? Very possibly. The games that are currently being held back by things computational wise, like, we'll see those still evolve at a breakneck speed. But that's just because there's not a glass ceiling there. The ones that are 4 hours long, nothing but set pieces, and look amazing, well, yeah, there's not a lot under the surface. We've been able to do that for fucking ever. Now the question is, can we make the other games look like that?
Yeah, I guess we probably won't, because it costs too much money. That's the problem.
No, we are. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I use Skyrim as an example, man. Like, that thing didn't look good because it had limits put on it, but it has been evolving at a damn near breakneck speed, and now it actually looks good. And to go from like looking like hot polygon trash to looking really good with full light sourcing, in less than 10 years, or in about 10 years, like, kind of a big. That's a quick progression. But it's not the apex of gaming. It's not the prettiest gaming. The prettiest gaming is the ones that are most restrictive, the fucking the orders of the world, right? They're able to get away with super high polished textures because there's not running a whole lot. And are we going to look better than those? No, but will those be a greater portion of the games? Yeah, absolutely. But it's just tough to polish or to go beyond that level of polish unless you have a more robust game. So no, we won't see that kind of thing with the big prettiest games, but all the other ones that are nowhere near that, sure, why not?
Yeah. But I'm just saying, when we get that PSX, we'll be like, hey, this kind of looks like the PS5. Just like we did for the last 2 generations,
I also want to mention that I think games today are getting unfairly judged because they're getting exponentially more complex on what they do. There's characters that have AI, there's different physics, there's global illumination, there's lighting, shadow effects, everything that's taken into account, and you can only increment as the graphic fidelity in terms of textures and all that stuff as high as the it's like you're looking at a graph and there's an x-axis and a y-axis, and you can only go as far as the slope will take you depending on what type of things you want to improve. If you want to do like the Order 1886, you can make that game look like the best game ever made if it's just contained into like a really small space.
Yeah,
but if you're doing
or you don't have to deal with any of the other processes that have to do with making a game, the actual AI of the characters, how the bullets and things react to anything. In other words, you just make a giant, beautiful looking cinematic that has absolutely no AI underneath it. And then, you can get those games that look amazing. And they've proven that sort of stuff before.
Yeah, then your game will be like 5 minutes long, That's the problem.
Chris, for explaining what I couldn't do in 10 minutes. Fuck you.
Who? What?
No.
So that was the point I was trying to make the whole time.
Carlos,
I just couldn't get it out.
Yeah. No.
It's Carlos.
It's the C and the R. That's confusing. But that still kind of proves the point too. We're not going to see those kind of jumps because of all these other factors.
Well, my answer would be we won't see them right away.
Yeah, that's the point exactly. It ain't. But the thing is, and that's okay too. That's okay. I'm just saying, don't expect those like, oh shit, man, look at the Super Nintendo compared to Nintendo. Them days ain't gonna happen, bro. That's in the past.
Like if we were ever to show any of the modern games to our younger selves when we were saying,
blown the fuck away.
Why don't games look like the cinematics? The cinematics. In fact, the games that we have currently look better than the cinematics we were seeing.
Way better
in the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2.
Yeah. So there is evolution. It's just gradual instead of just like,
Well, Tony, another thing, like you're talking between say like the PS2 to PS3, right? If you're talking the beginning of the PS2 to the end of PS3, how many fucking years is that?
End of the PS2, PS3?
That's 5 years.
From the beginning of the PS2 to the end of the PS3.
Oh yeah, 5 years. 5 years. Yeah, 5 years.
Oh no, the beginning.
The beginning of one to the end of the next.
Oh, to the end of the next. I don't know. 11 years, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that. Between going from a PS2 game to a PS3 game could include 11 years worth of development and progress, right?
Oh, I agree with you. I'm just saying we're not going to see that snap like we used to before.
11 years is not a snap.
Yes, it is. I mean, wait, hold on. 11 years is kind of long though, dude.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying you have a PS2 in your house right now, right? You buy the PS3, you're like, holy shit. This looks way better that you don't have to wait 10 years for that.
There's always been a couple of games that look real pretty, but they're devoid of substance and they're shot like it. Yeah, it's just a big cinematic, and you're like, oh man, I thought this game was going to be really good. Like,
yeah, but again, we're just talking about the graphic. We're not talking about the actual quality of the game, because you're right. Some of these games were fucking bullshit, like Lair, but it looked fucking nice, and you saw the actual difference between that generation and the previous one. That's my point.
And let me point out the bouncer for PlayStation 2.
Yeah, that's another one. That game looked fucking fantastic, but that's a whole other conversation right there.
Yeah, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, I think was the biggest jump. Like that was the one where you're like, big. Okay. PlayStation 3, it had the cell architecture when it came out, man. Like that shit took a minute to get off the ground. I remember, because it was incredibly frustrating. You're like, this thing's supposed to have more power. Where the fuck is all of its power? It didn't really start singing until the end of the generation.
But the 360 showed you what that generation was looking like, and you're like, this shit is way better looking than PS2. That's my point. Understand?
Or Xbox.
Yeah, or even Xbox. Yeah, Xbox 360. You're like, what the fuck? This is crazy right now. You don't get that anymore. You're just like, that looks a little better. Looks good.
By anymore, do we just mean just this last generation?
Well, no, I would argue 2 generations in a row we've been like, when you get the new console, you're like, it doesn't look much better than the shit I got right now, That's my point. When you got that PS2, when you got that 360, you're like, fuck, this looks good, You don't get that anymore.
Yeah, I've never been hugely particular on like when launch games being absolutely mind blowing. I mean, you think that. A lot of times the images they show you of what it's going to look like, and the videos are like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then when you get it, those graphics have been severely nerfed to run well.
That has happened. That has happened. Carlos, last thing, and then we got to move. We've been on this thing forever.
But did you not feel that way about Spider-Man? Where you're just like, holy damn.
Was Spider-Man the one that came out?
Yeah.
No, it looked good, but it wasn't a launch game, though,
Yeah, just real quick. Obviously, I agree with Tony's point that we won't have it from the jump ever anymore. But just the best example to say that we're still progressing in a rapid rate is just comparing Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. Is night and day. Those are completely different games.
Yeah, you're right about that. One of them, I believe, Red Dead, the first one, Red Dead Revolver, that's a whole other thing. Like Red Dead Redemption, the first one, that was like almost end of the generation, wasn't it? Right?
It was latter half of
and then
360 year.
Yeah, and the other one, 360, also, right? Just to be sure. So there was still a gap. So but you're right about that. We're obviously going to see progression. By the time we see the PS5 games at the end of the show, we're like, holy shit, this looks crazy. But that leap, we agree that leap ain't going to happen anymore. That's just the way it is.
Not at the start. Yeah.